I bet you looked at the title of this talk and said, wow, marketing just vomited into the form, didn't they? Hi, I'm Jamie Arlen. I'm the CISO at Aiven. Aiven is an open source data product company. So if it involves data tooling and open source, we're probably the place you want to be talking to. I want to talk to you about a bunch of things, but it's stuff that we generally leave on the floor. It's effectively a philosophical conversation, and how much of our businesses are actually philosophical at the core. We talk a big talk about digital transformation. Digital transformation is this thing that we're all going to do, and it's going to be amazing. And nobody really knows what the hell digital transformation is. It just sounds really good, and will probably get you budget. Most people experience digital transformation as, hey, we've got servers, and now we have instances, and not much else changes. And that's almost painful, not truly agonizing, but very expensive, and ultimately misses the entire point. When you think about businesses and we turn it all back into money statements, because let's face it, we all like to get paid, right? If we flip it back into a money statement and say, why would you choose to acquire an organization? What are you paying for? Well, we can't buy people. Customers, they're fickle. They'll move. They're not purchasable. I don't care about your office furniture. I can buy that cheaply enough myself at IKEA. And what I'm left with is how you do what you do. And that part is the incredibly painful aspect of all the businesses that we work in generally, because if I sort of hand wave the broad brush of all the people that are here, most of us work with completely intangible things. When was the last time that you're able to touch your work? I've been doing cloud and especially cloud security since about 2008, and I can't hug servers because I turned them all into instances like a decade ago. And what do you got? Well, we've got all this data, but we have no connection to it. There's no tokenization of that data to make us feel like it's something we have to take care of. If I say to you, hey, you're in an organization, you're running 4,000 instances, do you think in your head of, well, there's 72 rack units and then multiply? That's a lot of racks. That's like 60 racks worth of machines that I'm responsible for. That fills a not trivial sized room. That's something I can hug and I can hold on to. When you read the news stories about the latest ransomware loss of 16 million records, what does 16 million records mean? Well, let's print out 3 or 4 sheets of paper and we'll put it in one of those manila file folders, and then we'll put it in one of the drawers, and what does 16 million look like? The answer is several warehouses. But to technology professionals, it's just a thing that you hold on to. It's not anything more than that. It's a couple of lines in a database, right? This is not the way we're supposed to do things. If you're in one of those traditional, nuts and bolts kind of industries, you're used to, we have assets that we take care of. So we'll pick on Indiana, because my wife's from Indiana, so it's easy to pick on them. You're running a regional plumbing company in Indiana. You've got a fleet of trucks. You've got a bunch of information processing systems that have customer details and architecture stuff and inventory and buy and sell, and it's all in there. And somebody comes to you and says, digital transformation. And you're like, okay. You need to translate all of those ideas you have about maintaining your physical plant into your digital plant, right? That physical plant that you have, those trucks, you give them an oil change every 3,000 miles. If it's doing a squeak thing, you take it down to the shop and you get it fixed, because your business is dependent on rolling that truck full of plumbing parts and plumber to solve the problem. But you don't do that same work on the digital side of your business, because shrug, that's a nerd thing, or computers they do stuff. I don't understand them. As a business owner, you don't have a good way to hold that token of that data and understand it. When it was file drawers full of files, you understood how to deal with it. but technology made it all invisible. And now what do you do? Well, you're at the point where you need to start asking really hard questions. How am I actually managing and maintaining and caring for all of that information? And that's the piece where we start digging into what does the architectural elements of it look like? What does the care and feeding look like? And if I do those things at least as well as my family, shareholders, employees, customers, community are expecting, then everything will actually work out well. And what we see over and over and over again in small and medium-sized businesses is a failure to do that minimum bar level work. Why is that failure occurring? I mean, we see the failure, right? When was the last time you heard about a company having a ransomware attack? All right, and when was the last time you heard about a company having a ransomware attack? It goes like that, right? Like, we're in this situation where things don't take care of themselves because we don't build them to take care of themselves. We build them because it's cheap, or we build it because a salesperson said it's awesome without actually knowing or being able to validate or being able to check. And now what do you do? Well, you're a plumbing company. Your entire existence is to avoid having homeowners do their own plumbing. Anybody own a house and had to deal with plumbing issues? Anybody said, I'm never dealing with plumbing issues by myself ever again? Yeah, because when you're up to your elbow in a sewage pipe, you don't want to do that. You outsource that difficult or dirty or uncomfortable work to somebody who's a professional who does it. So why do you think, as a plumbing organization, you've got any business trying to run your own data systems? You should say, oh, I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. I'm going to ask that away. Software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. Make it somebody else's problem to deal with because somebody else will do it better than me. And what you've done in realizing that this isn't what you do is you've taken that first step, and it feels huge to say, I'm going to buy my way out of this problem. But that first little step that you've taken, that's actually fiduciary responsibility. You've taken ownership of the reality that it is your job to not do that work. It's your job to take care of it in a way that actually makes things better. And sometimes the best way to take care of something, the best way to make it better, is to spend the money. When you go and explain to a high school student, you know that plumbers make just as much money as SREs. And they go, whoa, wait a minute, really? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, they're both crap jobs, but they make about the same amount of money. Then they have about the same amount of stress, actually. At the end of the day, really. They both involve exploding effluent, like that's a thing. And wait, I can do this kind of work, outsource, not deal with the problem, if I take fiduciary responsibility, if I take that ownership and say, I'm going to be responsible for this data, not just hand wave and hope and, oh, well, I don't have to worry about those banking systems because Fred, the accountant, he's totally got that handled. Meanwhile, Fred really shouldn't be using computers, not really. Fred clicks on every email that he gets from an SDR and every email that he gets from not an SDR. I mean, those emails are coming in and he's just clicking on them. And oh crap, now my passwords have been stolen. Now I got nothing left. Oh geez, maybe I should have hired a different Fred. And that's the answer that they come to, but only after the bad thing happens. Now I'm using this, mythical regional plumbing company in Indiana as the example, but this applies regardless of the size of your organization. This applies if it's just you and you're a contract IT worker. You need to take care of your stuff as if you are one of the big guys, because to you and your people, you are the big guy. And then it starts applying at the small business level and the regional, medium-sized business and the larger, 10,000 person organizations that are still not doing this work. We're still seeing stories of people who are just not taking care of their data. In most cases, they're dumping it in little proprietary buckets and saying, oh, well, it'll probably be fine. Or because I paid for it, it's going to be perfect. And they're not looking at what that lock-in potential looks like. When you think about your accounting data, well, you're locked into whatever accounting system you use, and moving that data is difficult. But it isn't the accounting system's data, it's your data. Now, keep walking up that pathway of applications, and you start getting into basically every application needs a data backend. Like, that's just how it is. And having a data backend that is trustable because it's open, that is available because it's open, that you can move elsewhere because it's open. We end up with very core things. A big thing for Aiven, which is, a little Finnish startup database unicorn company, is I don't want to keep you as a customer because you're signed into a 12-month contract and you give up all the money if you leave. I want to keep you as a customer because you want to be a customer, because the system is that cool, the service is that good, the outcomes are that positive, and I want to make it so that you can leave. So ask yourself the question, as you're doing large data systems architectures, how easy is it for me to leave? Because ultimately, that's the fiduciary responsibility question. That's I'm taking what's important to me, to my stakeholders, whether it be shareholders, boards of directors, if you've got a family that you have to report to, if you have the family you have to report to, that you're taking all of that into consideration and you're saying, the right answer for me is to have control over the data after my relationship with the data services company goes away. I'm going to use Postgres. I want to be able to use Postgres outside. I don't want that beholden piece to it. This is really difficult to do. It's really difficult to explain. And so I'll give you the best way to explain this when you're trying to make that justification for, I need to put my data somewhere that I can trust. And it's the vendor that I'm talking to trusts me enough that they tell me at the beginning not just how to migrate onto their service, but how to migrate off of their service. Because that way they're respecting my fiduciary responsibility over my data. It's ultimately a Nash equilibrium solution. So if you haven't seen the awesome movie Beautiful Mind, that's homework. A Nash equilibrium is you both lose a little bit in order to both win. I lose a little bit by not locking you into a term contract. But I win because you want to work with me, not you have to work with me. You lose a little bit because you're saying, I care more about leaving you, vendor, than I care about staying with you, vendor. But you win because you've answered that fiduciary responsibility question of who controls my data, who cares for my data, and how do they enable my strategy? Not theirs, but my business strategy. And that's how you do this stuff for real. Ask the hard questions and make sure that they give you really good answers for them. My name is Jamie. I'm from Aiven. We're a unicorn open data company. We started in Finland, but we're as global as you get. If you have any questions, you talk to me down over there, or we've got a booth that's like over there. It's the one with the crab on the front. Thanks, everyone.